Hey everybody, it's Brooke with The Buttered Home and welcome to my messy kitchen. Today we are going to have a lot of fun in the kitchen. It is all things summer around here as we kick off the month of May, and just like grilling, one of the things that we think about whenever it gets warm outside is seafood. Now, while this is not technically seafood, we're using a freshwater fish today, but in my mind, any type of fish or shellfish, fits in that category. So one of the best recipes that we have just made for years and years is Big D's fried fish. And like his banana pudding and his Boston butt, I kind of twisted his arm so that he could maybe let me share this recipe with you guys. And that is what we're gonna do today. We are gonna show you the best, most simple batter that you can put together for fried fish. So what we have done is we have taken fish, and any white flaky fish will do, and we have just rinsed it off and we have placed it on a pan with paper towels, and I have covered them with another paper towel and dried them off. This way the fish will take the batter more easily because we are going to do a buttermilk soak. So I have a cup of buttermilk and 2 eggs, and I'm going to add the 2 eggs into my buttermilk, and then I'm just going to whip them up in the buttermilk. And I'm using a pretty large batter bowl here to do this in, and that works great because you have enough room to put all your fish in here. Now, this recipe is for about 2 pounds of fish, but it can be modified to do less or do more. We're doing a little bit less today, but that's okay. We're gonna save the batter because the dry batter can be placed in a Zip-Top bag and frozen in the freezer and kept for later. So this is a good dual purpose recipe so that if you want to do a little right now and do a little bit later, you can. So now we're going to show you what we do with the batter itself. So while we have mixed up the buttermilk and the egg, we are going to take our dried fish and we're going to place it in that mixture. And while we prep everything else, we're gonna let these guys soak for about 5 minutes so that they can soak up that buttermilk and that egg so that the dry batter will adhere to them a little bit better. All right, so I'm just gonna set that pan to the side and we're gonna move that over. And then to this large bowl, I'm going to add 1 cup of plain all-purpose flour and a 1/2 cup of cornmeal. Now this can be self-rising, it can be plain, whatever you have on hand. Just like a lot of our other recipes, we're not gonna send you out into the world to buy something just specifically for our recipe. So we're gonna mix those 2 up. And I want you to notice you have more flour than you do cornmeal. So the cornmeal gives it a little bit of a rough texture without adding too much. The flour also gives it a creamier or heavier texture to the batter as well. Now to that, we are going to add 1 teaspoon of black pepper. We're going to add 2 teaspoons of salt. Now, I know that seems like a lot of salt, but the fish need a little bit more salt than normal. And then to that, we are going to add 2 teaspoons of Old Bay seasoning. And if you have never tried this, oh my gosh, you're gonna need to get it and you're gonna need to keep it on hand. I have several recipes that we use Old Bay in, and Old Bay is not just for seafood. We have a really good recipe for some diced roasted potatoes that have Parmesan cheese and Old Bay seasoning, and oh my goodness, if you need a taste of summer in the middle of winter, you just add that Old Bay to anything that you're cooking and you are good to go. So now we have all of that mixed up really well. And then I'm going to take, I've got a clean pan over here, and I think our fish have soaked long enough. So we're going to fish out, get it, fish out our fish. Excuse me, woo, pepper. All right, so one at a time, I'm just going to take the fish and put it into our dry mixture. And these don't have to be heavily breaded. The fish is actually better if you have just a light batter on it, but we want to make sure that all the surface is covered. Now, like I said, you can use any cut of fish for this recipe. The recipe is actually for the soak and for the batter, but any good white fish, a white flaky fish will do. We have a freezer full of redfish, so we tend to use this with a lot of redfish. It's also good with grouper, it's good with catfish, it's good with just about anything that you can think of. Again, use what you have on hand or use what you can find. It does not matter. You don't have to go out and get something specifically, but whitefish tends to fry up a little easier and hold its texture better than, say, salmon or other meatier fish. All right, so that fillet looks good. And we're just tapping off the excess before we pull them out of the batter. Now we're gonna wanna batter all these guys at once while our oil is heating. Now the recipe calls for about 2 to 4 cups of oil, just depending on what size pan or vessel you're going to fry these in. So just like when you fry chicken or anything else, hush puppies, whatever, we like to recommend that you use an inch measurement other than a cup measurement, but it ends up being anywhere from around 2 to 4 cups of oil. But you'll see in a minute, we're gonna be using a cast iron Dutch oven, and I really just eyeball it and put 2 inches of oil in that thing. Now, you might have a Dutch oven that is larger than mine, or you might have a Dutch oven that is smaller than mine. So that 2-inch rule is gonna get you the desired amount of oil from the top of the surface of the oil to the bottom of the pan in order to be able to do what's considered a deep fry. All right, so I have got all of that mixture, and like I said, you can totally sift this out and you can use it later if you would like and freeze it. The fish that we just battered in it is gonna be fine, and if you sift it out, you're gonna get those bits of eggs out that would cause any type of spoilage. So it's totally okay to sift this out and then freeze the remainder. All right, I'm gonna set this aside and wash my hands really quickly. All right, and then we're gonna let the fish rest. And then I have got my small Dutch oven here with that 2 inches of oil in it. And I'm just gonna light it really quickly and turn it down. And put that Dutch oven on top. Now you'll see I've got a candy thermometer here. That is to kind of help me gauge when our oil comes to temperature. So I'm gonna put that where I can see it. And we want this oil to come up to about 365 degrees for best practices. Now we're going to let our fish hang out until the oil is ready to cook in. This allows the batter to adhere better to the fish and become part of the fish so that you're not left with a huge separation between the batter and the fish, because you don't want all the batter to fall off. You want it to stick to the fish. So we're going to take a quick break and let our oil come to temperature, and then we'll be back to show you how this fries up all nice and wonderful. Okay, we are back and our oil is almost at 365 degrees. So probably by the time I get through talking, it'll be right ready to fry. But you'll notice that our fish looks a lot different. It actually is adhered, and it's not so floury looking anymore. So it has a nice, good coating on it, which is what you want to see ideally. And doing that while your oil heats up is like prime to do that. So we are going to take our tongs, and we are up to 365 degrees, and we are going to carefully drop our fish in. Now I only do this like in this small Dutch oven, maybe 2 fillets at a time. And there are 2 reasons for that. One is, like, the temperature of our oil just dropped almost 10 degrees by us putting them in there. So now I'm gonna just watch my watch, and I'm gonna fry these just about 2 minutes on one side, and then I'm gonna flip them over. And they should start to float. You'll see that long guy that I put in there, he has floated up just a bit. And I'm keeping an eye on my temperature, and we are still climbing. We're back up to about 360 degrees now. So I'm gonna just take my spider and I'm just gonna flip them over. And that is another good reason to only fry like 2 pieces at a time in a small vessel like this one, because you can more easily manipulate them in the pan. And he doesn't want to cooperate, probably because my thermometer is in the way. All right, so we're gonna let them just fry on that other side for just about 2 to 3 minutes. And the great thing about fish is, and especially like what we're using today, it cooks up pretty fast, because this is a thin fish, and it does great. So it doesn't take it long to cook whatsoever. All right, so we're going to flip that over. And I probably should have mentioned this before, but this is flounder we're using today, because that's what we had on hand. All right, so we have gotten good and brown. And I'm gonna just pull these guys out, and then I'm gonna drain them on a paper towel. And see, you don't have a really thick batter on here. I mean, you don't want your, I guess you don't want your fish to be like fried chicken. I don't. I want to keep the integrity of the fish and just add a little flavor to it. So that, for me, that's what kind of sets this recipe apart. So I have 2 more fillets that we're going to carefully put in and just cook those about 2 to 3 minutes per side. Depending on the fish you're using, will indicate how long you cook it. Like I said, these fillets are kind of thin, so they won't take nearly as long as, say, if you were using a catfish fillet. One of the things that we like to do, because this is a lot of oil, is keep this oil and reuse it. Now, there are a couple of good tips we can give you for this. One is, this is the perfect time to make up some hush puppies, and you can totally use the same oil and have the hush puppies with your fish. Also, if you were not going to be frying an awful lot and feel like this might be a big waste of oil, one of the things that you can do when you're done frying the fish is you can drop a handful of frozen French fries in the oil and cook those, and that will actually remove a lot of the fish taste from the oil so that you can reuse it for something else and it won't be all fishy. So that is your pro tip from Big D of how to clean up your fish frying oil to reuse it. So a handful of French fries will get that fishy taste out. Then when the oil cools, you can strain it and reuse it. Unless, of course, you don't mind the fish taste and you're gonna fry fish again in a few days, then you can just let it cool and cover it and keep it as is. Either way works just fine. But that is a good little tip straight from the Big D, the buttered home man of the house, on how best to conserve and not be wasteful on overuse of your oil. But y'all, these guys are beautiful. I'm gonna turn the heat off and just let them continue to cook for just a minute. Then we're gonna take them up and then I'm gonna carefully bust one open and show you how well they stay together and how pretty they are. And I mean, in less than 5 minutes, you've got some really beautiful fish fillets. See, that color is just gorgeous on them. And let me get one of these too that are a little bit cooler. And I'll pop it open best I can and let you see how that fish is cooked all the way through. It's good and flaky and wonderful, and it doesn't fall apart. Your batter is the perfect little casing for these and kind of holds everything together, and you have all of your flavors there as well. So, and it's steaming hot, burning my fingertips and like making me extremely hungry. So for a fabulous pan of fried fish, probably the best way you'll ever have it, with pantry staple ingredients that you don't have to go out and buy, unless of course you need the Old Bay, but the Old Bay is an investment for lots of recipes in the future and lots of recipes that we'll be sharing with you over the next few months as summer comes. One of the great things about this batter is like all of our other recipes, it's buildable, it's customizable, and you can totally add just a little bit of something different to make it your own, to suit your own taste. One of the things that comes to mind for me is cayenne pepper. So if you want a little zip and a little heat in there, you can do that. Or you can just dip these in some hot sauce if heat is not everybody's thing. But just like all our other buttered home recipes, this is a good basic recipe to get you started and to get you to think about cooking and think about your food. So don't forget, if you haven't already, make sure that you hit that subscribe button here on YouTube so that you can be notified whenever we drop new videos like this one. If you ding the bell. Sorry, I forgot that. Also, be sure you're following us on all our social media channels. On most Monday nights, we cook live over at Facebook and Instagram, and we have a lot of fun there, and we would love to have you in our messy kitchen with us on those platforms as well. So for great recipes like this, be sure to check back often, and from the buttered home to your home. We love you guys. Bye.